Hey, Rob here. Before we get started with this episode, I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. We did go out of our way to record our initial reactions to Suicide Squad, so later when you hear our review, you'll see about midway through the sound quality shift. That's because we were going from in the car on the way back from the theater to actually, recording from within the house. Also, after a couple more days of reflection, I would probably drop my rating that I mentioned later in the episode about half a star. So without further ado, let's jump into this episode. Welcome to the Crooked Table Podcast. This is Rob. So I know it's been a couple weeks since we've been doing this, and I keep saying I'm going to get into a more regular schedule. But I promise that I'm working on it. I actually have new equipment now to record podcasts and do kind of streamline the editing process. So I fully intend on moving closer towards that in the next couple weeks. And hopefully putting out an episode once a week. I have a bunch of housekeeping things and things I've been meaning to address on the podcast. So I just wanted to blow through a few of those real fast. Some of my favorite movies of the year thus far: Civil War. I know we didn't really get a chance to talk about it on the podcast due to, I guess, the temporary hiatus that we inadvertently found ourselves in. But Captain America: Civil War, Zootopia, and Sing Street are my three favorite movies of the year. I was going to do a whole separate episode about that, but didn't really get a chance. And now that we're in August, we're actually closer to the end of the year than the middle, or moving closer to the end of the year, to the fall season almost. So I just wanted to throw those out, as well as kind of touching base on a little bit of DC stuff, especially since this episode we're going to be delving into our review of Suicide Squad. So first off, let me just say that I just finished season 1 of The Flash. Finally, after like towards the end of season 2, I finally broke down, and I was just like, okay, I guess I need to check this out because people keep saying how great it is. And I was a fan of Grant Gustin from Glee, and I heard all the time travel possibilities. I watched the Flashpoint Paradox animated film, and I have a little bit of familiarity with the character beforehand. I haven't really watched or read a lot of his stories before this series, so I'm sort of learning about the Flash comic book mythology as I go along. But I was really impressed with season 1. I love I'm not going to delve into any spoilers on it. I'm just giving you my general impressions of the series. Really love all the characters. I think it's very interesting when you watch more recent shows like this on the CW, because you can really feel the influence of shows like Buffy, and that's Flash has his own little Scooby gang with Cisco and Caitlin and Dr. Wells, and it extends more as the season goes on. And I really love the tone of, how they incorporate time travel, intrigue, and, all the meta-human drama, kind of ground it and keep it from getting too serious. I really feel like the DC films, and, I'll get into that a little more in this episode, I really feel like the films need to borrow more from the TV style that they've incorporated, because, they've had such success with The Flash, to a slightly lesser degree, at least the last season or two from what I've heard, with Arrow, and Supergirl. I think that the films need to have a more balanced tone, like the shows managed to pull off, where you have an emotional scene, then you have a joke the next moment, then a really dramatic, almost borderline terrifying moment afterwards. We get into that more and more as the Reverse Flash storyline really plays out throughout season 1. But I'm really sort of gravitating more towards the TV shows than I am the movies. Of course, I'm a movie guy principally, so I'm very curious to see everything they have coming up. I was relatively intrigued by the Wonder Woman and Justice League trailers. I wasn't quite as enthusiastic as I've seen a lot of people be. I think I'm just learning to temper my expectations when it comes to their films lately, especially after Suicide Squad, and again, we'll get into that. But I am curious what they have in store with both of those movies. I think probably Wonder Woman has an opportunity to be better than Justice League, just because Justice League does have the Zack Snyder factor, as well as the huge expectations of trying to establish all these characters in a relatively short period of time. So yeah, Flash Season 1, highly recommended. If you haven't watched it, definitely jump on it, especially since they're going to be delving into Flashpoint at the beginning of Season 3. So now I'm on a mission to track down Season 2. So either getting my hands on the DVD or the Blu-ray, or seeing if I can find somewhere where Season 2 is streaming. But I'm definitely looking forward to catching up on that as soon as possible, and I'll keep you guys posted on what I think of Season 2. So continuing, since somehow this is all DC content this week, and I know it probably looks like we're really biased against Marvel since we did a whole Batman v Superman episode, and now we're doing like a Suicide Squad largely episode. I assure you that's not intentional. It's just the way that scheduling happened, where Captain America Civil War sort of got lost in the shuffle for our coverage on the Crooked Table podcast. But it's also, I mean, I mention this again later in the episode when we talk about Suicide Squad. Spoilers, I guess that's been recorded already. But it just feels like Marvel has sort of slipped into not a formulaic storyline, but it's like we know what to expect from them. They have they're very consistent with their film slate, and to me at least, it's very rare that they deliver something exceptional. Civil War, Winter Soldier, Avengers, those to me are all like 4.5 to 5 films. And it's just, you know, other than that, most of them are more like 3.5. They're decent, they're fun, but they're nothing to like write home about, nothing transcendent where you're going to tell people that don't even like superhero films that they need to see it. Whereas DC, I feel like, yes, they're not necessarily up to the quality of Marvel, at least not yet. You know, their shared universe is still young. If we remember back in Marvel Cinematic Universe early days, not that many people were impressed with Incredible Hulk or Iron Man 2, really, either. So, and I would maintain that Man of Steel, which is equivalent to the Iron Man of the DC Cinematic Universe, is actually probably still the strongest of the three DC Extended Universe movies. And I know that's probably a divisive thing to say, since that movie had quite the reaction from fans, thanks to Zod's snapped neck and all the other Zack Snyder-y things that people don't seem to respond to very much. But yeah, so DC at least taking risks, trying to figure themselves out. And to me, I guess maybe they feel like there's more to say with their films than there are the Marvel ones. Even though the Marvel films, I mean, are sort of undisputedly, at least within the fan community, undisputedly solid to excellent. So just real quick before Kai's going to join me in a little bit to discuss Suicide Squad. But before we jump into that, I just wanted to give my quick thoughts on Batman v Superman Ultimate Edition and Batman The Killing Joke, which is now on Blu-ray. I actually saw it in theaters at a Fathom event, and since I'm already talking about that, let's delve into that one real fast. So I know this movie has been the subject of a lot of controversy with the Batgirl prologue, the first 30 minutes or so, that tries to contextualize the main Killing Joke storyline, and I will concede that it is definitely the weakest part of the film. There are a lot of troubling aspects with regard to the character of Batgirl, her relationship with Batman, and again, I'm trying to remain spoiler-free for this. We'll have a spoiler discussion of Suicide Squad later, but these two are really just general thoughts. A lot of troubling implications for Batgirl, and I can see why people feel like it's sexist, or like it actually makes the character look worse than she does in the original Killing Joke storyline. But I don't know. Obviously, I'm coming from my own perspective, and that's really all I can do with any of these reviews. But I didn't really feel like it damaged her as much. I did notice that in my screening, as I said, I saw it during the 2-day event in theaters, that there were a lot of people sort of laughing and snickering when Batman reacts to her a certain way early in the film, and when things play out, sort of not really taking it seriously, and I didn't really necessarily read it that way. It did seem like she had a lot of agency, and her connection with Batman early on was really more of something that she was in pursuit of, something that she really born out of her own motivation, rather than being used or objectified as she is later in the story. And I feel like if they hadn't added that prologue, as problematic as it may be, I feel like the film would have been even more criticized by fans because of the way that she's treated in the storyline by the Joker, and the way that she is essentially just gives Batman a reason to go after Joker, and kind of just a pawn in Joker's scheme against Gordon and Batman. And even though the prologue didn't entirely work for me, the rest of it, the voice casting, of course, with Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, was so spot on, so strong. And Alan Moore's writing, the conversations that the two of those characters have, and the dialogue and the music, the original song. Well, I mean, not original, because the lyrics are actually ripped right out of the Alan Moore text. But the music that they set it to, as well as the score, and some people have criticized the animation style, but I feel like it isn't as sharp as some of the other Batman animated films, but it does have a little bit of a griminess to it, and I feel like that's intentional, because the artwork in the original comic book and the original graphic novel was also sort of, unpolished, and I think it's supposed to make it feel grittier and more like a pulpy story based on all the controversial content in there. And I felt that was really fitting for this storyline. But yeah, the latter half of the film, when it's basically a direct translation of the graphic novel, that I thought was all superb. I would probably, if it was just that and they expanded it out without kind of diluting it with that prologue sequence, it probably would have been more of a 4.5 for me. Whereas the Batgirl stuff, because it doesn't entirely work, even though I see what they were going for, that probably would have been more of a 3-ish. So I with my review that I did for WeGotThisCovered.com, if you want to check that out over there, I actually had to give it a 4 out of 5. I thought The Killing Joke was a solid effort, probably more successful overall than Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, as well as Suicide Squad, but again, more on that later. So I don't know. I'm not sure why 100% it didn't work for people. Because, I feel like the material that is directly lifted from the graphic novel is strong enough to sort of help the film overcome some of the problems of the first 20 to 30 minutes. So those are just my general thoughts on Batman: The Killing Joke. I enjoyed it a lot. It's not, it's by far not the best animated film that's come out of DC. It's not even the best animated film with Batman, or, the best Batman film of the last few years or anything like that. But I thought it was a worthwhile effort, and, I'm glad that they finally made that storyline into an adaptation for the screen, and brought along the most iconic Batman and Joker, especially, voice actors to bring it to life. So, shifting gears from The Killing Joke to Batman v Superman Ultimate Edition, I've sort of been kind of vocal on Twitter about, looking forward to this and wanting to check it out, and I actually ended up, because the film is 3 hours long and I have a million things going on pretty much always, I ended up sort of watching it in installments, and in doing so, I sort of inadvertently had an epiphany. It does feel like this 3-hour cut is very akin to Zack Snyder's ultimate version of Watchmen, which is actually the one I own on Blu-ray, and probably my preferred one, even though I understand that a lot of people have to take issue with the animated sequence. They think it brings down the pacing, which I don't necessarily disagree with. But I feel like the ultimate version of Watchmen, just like BVS, is best watched in snippets. And what I mean by that is, if you take both of those 3-hour films and you cut them into like 1-hour chunks, it does sort of play out like a comic book soap opera, essentially. And with BVS specifically, I noticed that if you break it down, like the end of the first hour being the Senate hearing or the montage of newscasters and people talking about, well, do we really need a Superman? and Superman, dragging that ship and saving those people, and ending on sort of a down note, basically questioning, do we need this guy around? Is he, the controversy surrounding Superman? And then the second hour ending right before Lex Luthor's, or right before, right after, right around the time where Lex Luthor is kicking into fight night, day versus night, man versus God, and that whole thing. It really keys up the Batman versus Superman fight, even though that in and of itself is a bit underwhelming, and leaves it open for the third hour to be all action, Wonder Woman, Doomsday, and all that stuff. Obviously, spoilers if you haven't seen at least the trailers for BVS, but I do feel like it does work best watching it about an hour at a time, sort of like a mini-series more than an actual film that's designed to be seen in one sitting. And in doing so, I feel like you're able to better digest what's happening, because the story in that film is overly complex, and I'm not going to defend the storyline because I do think that there are a lot of issues. I think Lex Luthor's plan is way too complicated, but I think that the ultimate version sort of fleshes that out a little bit more so that it makes sense. It does feel like, and I'm going to compare it to another director's cut of a superhero film. It does feel sort of like the Daredevil director's cut. And before all of you that hate that movie jump on me about that, I will say that I don't think the Daredevil movie or the theatrical version or the director's cut are perfect films, but I do think that the director's cut sheds a lot more light and really helps elaborate on what's going on in the theatrical version of Daredevil. If you watch the theatrical cut, the Kingpin's plan and how he gets caught and all of that pretty much make no sense. And I do feel like in the interest of cutting that film down, getting the running time under 2 hours so that they can maximize the number of showings that they can do in the theater and, increase their box office potential, both Daredevil and BVS basically cut all the storyline in favor of action scenes and trying to keep viewers interested with just like a lot of frenetic footage rather than contextualizing it. And the Ultimate Edition of Batman vs. Superman really, really adds in the necessary details to get a full grasp on what Lex Luthor is trying to pull off. Even though, yes, his plan is kind of ridiculous. If you've seen the Honest trailer that Screen Junkies did, they have a great part there where they do a whole list of Lex Luthor's plan, including everything from peeing in a jar to, blackmailing people and getting access to bodies and pitting, finding out all these secrets of everybody and all that stuff. The Ultimate Edition does make that a little more palatable, and some of the added footage, added action. There's a couple different action beats in the fight with Batman, which makes him a little more brutal. And I think actually by making him slightly more overtly brutal in the Ultimate Edition, I think it actually serves well in supporting his arc by the end, where he's decided to turn a corner, to not go too far, to fight crime and to sort of reinstitute his one rule, as it were, after 20 years of Gotham and 20 years of fighting crime in Gotham, rather, and sort of refocuses his mission in light of, spoilers again, like I said, in light of Superman's death. I did also enjoy the mention of Arkham towards the end, and I think it transitions well into Suicide Squad. And, you still see Belle Reeve, you see Arkham, you see all those a lot of characters in that film that dovetail well from the conclusion of Batman versus Superman. So overall, I'd probably still stick with a rating of about 3. I do think that Batman and Superman, the device that Snyder and his team used to get the two of them to fight, isn't really satisfying because it's not truly motivated on both sides. It's really just Batman who wants to kill Superman and Superman who's trying to save his mom. And the Martha moment does still feel slightly off and not 100% earned, even though it is kind of an interesting way of leveraging the fact that both of their moms have names in Martha. And I do like that Superman's the fact that Superman has a mom snaps Batman out of his blind rage. It just seems that all of a sudden I don't know how that really turns into them being allies, where 2 seconds later he's telling Martha Kent, not Martha Wayne, he's telling Martha Kent, oh, I'm a friend of your son's, and that even when I saw it in theaters, I was like, friend? I mean, you're going to kill him like 5 minutes ago, but okay. I mean, I guess now you're friends because Martha. So, and I do feel like some of the CG overload in the third act gets a little much, and this is a complaint I had about the initial theatrical cut, but I don't feel, I don't know, it just seems overdone. There's still too much going on, even with a 3-hour runtime now. And I really wish they would have split it in half and had the keying up of the Justice League maybe been like the first half of the Justice League film that we're going to be getting, and have that sort of be with Wonder Woman and develop into the rest of the team members. But regardless, there's enough stuff in there that works for me. Still a huge fan of Ben Affleck's Batman, have been since they announced him being cast in that role. Really looking forward to seeing more of Gal Gadot in Wonder Woman. I even like Lex Luthor in this film, as Jesse Eisenberg played it. Even though I totally understand those of you who find him incredibly obnoxious and off-putting. I don't know, it sort of worked for me. And you'll hear my thoughts on Jared Leto's Joker in a little bit. But yeah, so overall, I enjoy the film, but I recognize it's very flawed. I think 3 out of 5 is still the perfect rating, even for the Ultimate Edition. All right, so we literally just walked out of advanced screening of Suicide Squad. We'll be putting this up on Friday when the film comes out. So we haven't even asked each other really what we thought of the movie. So
yeah, he put me on a.
I put you on. You were on
a talking embargo.
A talking embargo, pretty much. So what was your? I guess we should first just kind of set up. So the movie, we're going to be talking about spoilers, just because it's no fun if there's no spoilers. And the movie does blatantly reference the fact that Batman v Superman has happened.
Yeah, so that was good. It did that.
They show actually like footage of people sort of, I don't know if it was some kind of a funeral or some kind of a memorial procession or something.
Yeah, it looked like
for
it was,
Superman.
Yeah.
So
I wasn't
spoilers
sure at first.
Spoiler if you didn't see BVS, they reveal in here that Batman that Superman is dead. So that was good. I thought I had heard that beforehand, but it was good just for the sake of clarity that the movie does make explicit. Yes, so this is a world now without Superman.
But here's the thing, though. I don't feel like it was clear through the T-shirts and through the funeral procession. I feel like it was more clear when it was more mentioned by.
In the government room and stuff.
That's when it became more explicit to me. That it just implied.
Well, but the point being, you saw all that. They show you, like, Superman's dead, now we're sad about it. And then, yes, they mention...
sometimes.
I know, it could be that. It's also, you're watching a night and probably had a long day and blah, blah, blah. But the movie does, basically the impetus for the Suicide Squad, that for Amanda Waller, played by Viola Davis, to kind of kick off the Task Force X program, which, basically becomes the Suicide Squad, is, them, I guess the government looking for another way to combat supernatural threats now that Superman's not around to rely on, essentially, right? It does seem like she was probably at least capitalizing on that opportunity to be like, well, let me jump on this so I can get the approval.
Well, she doesn't seem like they liked Superman anyway. It seemed like they wanted a way to...
Well, there was controversy. Superman, in BV...
Which is weird that Batman's okay.
We're totally... Well, no, not okay.
Batman...
Not okay.
To Amanda Waller was...
Well, to Amanda Waller is not a good guy. Amanda Waller is very morally gray.
Well, yes, but I'm just saying that she was preferable to have Batman working on her side than Superman. They all thought, including her, thought that Superman was a risk. Same thing Batman thought.
Right.
So it seems to me they were glad that Superman
died. So you think somewhere in the room Amanda Waller was like, if there's a 1% chance that he's our enemy, We gotta take him out.
Yeah, that's because she even said. She said we need to have a task force. We have flying people. And
what if the next Superman? Superman was on our side. She says basically. What if the next metahuman? And I don't think they use the term metahuman in BVS. That's a DC thing that they use in the comic books. I'm watching The Flash, as some people might know if they follow me on Twitter or listen to the podcast. They use metahuman in that show. That's a DC term for people with abilities. And
that's a whole lot nicer than mutant.
Well, it's a different thing.
Mutant
is a mutant. Well, they also have Inhumans. It's different ways of getting abilities. In DC, metahuman just means it's a human with other, like an enhanced human, basically.
Well, it's weird though with
which is what they call them in Avengers: Age of Ultron. They say, "Oh, it's just an enhanced."
Oh, okay. At least they don't call them an asset.
No, yeah.
But Deadshot though is not enhanced. He's not a metahuman.
No, he's not really a metahuman.
Dude who just like to shoot guns.
He's an exception. I guess Captain Boomerang is it. Anyway, we're getting behind.
Anyway, yeah.
So, general impressions. What did you think of the movie? Like on its own, and then of course in context with Man of Steel and BVS and stuff coming up.
Well, I would say that I did like it more than both Man of Steel and BVS. I think Zack Snyder, he as a director, his movies just go on for too long with just a whole bunch of stuff, whether it's a fight sequence or
all that slow motion.
Yeah, I don't like his directorial movies, but he produced this one and I liked it. So I like this one a little bit better. It was so weird that all the logos and the credits were so brightly colored because the movie itself is very dark.
It was very
bright colors in there except Harley Quinn.
Well, they put a lot of neon stuff like in early on. I think when they're to transition to different scenes with flashbacks and such. Plus, the whole marketing campaign has all been with those the neon logo and the poster and all that stuff.
Which gets your attention by itself, trailers
and I think that's sort of the idea. So where would you land as far as out of 5 for this? Like 3.5-ish?
I'll give it a 3.5.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I'm probably about the same. The structure for the movie felt really, I don't know if it was it just me or was the structure really weird?
Well,
because basically it feels like they spend like a half hour just being like, Deadshot, here's his story. Harley Quinn, here's her story. Everybody's like cutaway sort of.
Well, yeah, and I think I like the way that they actually did the origin stories, but of course, rightfully, they spent more time on Deadshot
and Harley Quinn.
It's actually they spent a lot of time on Harley Quinn. Like,
well,
I felt like that
she's the main attraction
here. The movie was about her. Her and Joker. I'm like, okay.
In a way, what it feels like.
El Diablo was interesting. I want to know more about that guy.
Well, we're not going to get a chance to anymore.
I know.
And he probably wasn't going to stick around anyway. But in a lot of ways, the Suicide Squad movie does feel like a safer way like a backdoor way into a Harley Quinn movie. Because in a lot of parts in this movie was very Harley Quinn focused, as you said. They have the flashback that Amanda Waller introduces when she's talking about Harley Quinn used to be Dr. Harleen Quinzel, and we get a little bit of that, and then we have a couple more flashbacks just when Harley is just thinking about stuff. But it did, Harley Quinn is such a iconic character now that I sort of expected her to have a lot of the focus. And Deadshot especially having Will Smith in the role, Deadshot is a pretty prominent character in DC Comics as well. I sort of figured that they would be that kind of take up more of the screen time and the narrative, the narrative focus where, we actually understand more of where they're coming from and what their motivations are throughout the movie than we do people like Diablo gets some.
He gets some
later on. It takes a while,
which I'm glad they went there.
Yeah,
because I was curious on what his story was, or why he didn't want to.
So since the movie is so team based, and we're talking about Harley Quinn and Deadshot, how did you feel about those two characters? Did they work for you? What did you think of the little focus reunion between Will Smith and Margot Robbie? Did the casting work for you? I thought Will Smith was actually a pretty good choice for Deadshot.
Except he always plays Will Smith. He was Will Smith in this movie.
He does to an extent, but not not to the same level.
Well,
I mean,
he was a villain here. He's very rarely a villain.
He was an anti-hero, really, more than anything, because we're like,
he wasn't going to kill people just because...
We root for you, even though you're bad, but you're not bad entirely, because you love your daughter, and I think that is something from the comics. But yeah, he did tone down the Will Smith-isms. He wasn't like, no, and things like, oh, hell no. Like, I'm glad he didn't say that. You could tell that he was trying to, I don't know if it was his choice, or the director was like, hey, Will, don't be you. You know what I mean? It didn't feel like the exact same guy like from Independence Day and Men in Black and those other movies. It did feel like a variation on that.
Okay,
but
fair enough.
But not, he didn't just take his normal on-screen persona and sort of transition it over.
Okay.
And they did go out of their way to make him, to emphasize the fact that he is bad and have him kill a bunch of people in some scenes and things like that. So I mean, that was my thoughts on Deadshot. So for Deadshot first, where did you land on that? Were you agreeing?
I mean, Will Smith did a good enough job with it, and I think it's a cool idea for a villain / anti-hero.
Right.
So Deadshot was cool, and it's funny because it seemed like they were all really good with guns, except they made Deadshot like the gun guy.
Well, that's his thing, yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, Captain Boomerang has his.
Which didn't seem like it did anything.
He killed people. Did he kill
really?
people with that?
Did he?
I don't know.
I don't really feel like he did anything.
It's PG-13, and so they have to sort of be very careful on the kinds of violence that they show.
He just seemed like he talked shit and
Captain
drank.
Boomerang? Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
So Harley Quinn then. Did you like her, or did you find her annoying? Because I'm not hugely versed on the comics, but I have at least passing familiarity with most of these characters. But I know this is like pretty much all new to you, minus Joker, basically.
Right. No, and this isn't anything to for Margot Robbie's performance, but I was a little put off by how sexualized they made her. Like, of course, she's the one that doesn't even have a real outfit to wear. She's
the short shorts and
it's basically
a bra.
glorified underwear. And
well, I mean, she did wear the Daddy's Little Monster thing over it for some of the runtime, at least. I mean, it wasn't entirely her running around in her underwear, even though I think there was some of that.
But it's just...
And there was a visual callback to her jester suit from the comics. Once when she gets her stuff, she holds it up for a second.
If she wore that.
Yeah, but then you would have been like, "This looks ridiculous." You know what I mean? So. They have to build up to that. They'll probably do that in another movie. But
when did this chick get so good with guns and doing acrobats on people?
She's been hanging with the Joker.
But he doesn't do that stuff. He doesn't do acrobats.
We'll get to the Joker, but we're trying to hit the main team members first.
But I don't know. I just think she was definitely over-sexualized, and that bummed me out, because Margot Robbie, she's a beautiful woman, and
very talented actress.
Yeah, and they totally played it up on that, and I wish in a way she didn't do that.
I think to a certain one, I mean, there's a couple reasons for that. One, they want to sell tickets, and you put this hot blonde in all your promotional materials. That's one way to get asses in seats, first of all. And secondly, I feel like, at least in the context of the movie, that Harley Quinn is using that to her advantage, and she's doing that shit on purpose to throw people off balance, sort of in the way that in the Charlie's Angels movie, they would sort of like Drew Barrymore, who's I know is your girl, would try and be all flirty to try and get access to places and things like that. I did get a sense that she was self-aware for the most part, except that one part where she's changing. But even then, it could have been just so people think of her as a sex object. Early on, when the guards are coming in and she's flirting with him and licking the bars and trying to be all sexy, and he's like, "Yeah, no, you put 5 of my guys in the hospital. I'm not falling for that shit." So at least I did get the sense that it's in a way it's objectifying her, but in another sense, it's also how she empowers herself. She uses that to her advantage.
It's also, okay, well, one thing I'm also wondering, is she that crazy in the comic books?
Yeah, oh yeah. I believe so. I mean, yeah, granted, there's been multiple versions of the comic books and such, but I did like that the movie made it clear that it was her choice to undergo the same chemical treatment that the Joker had. He asks her, he's like, "Are you ready for this?" He's like, "Do you want this?" And she's, "Yes." He's like, "Tell me you want it," or whatever. And then he throws her in the vat, or she jumps in the vat of chemicals.
She already has the stuff on her brain, right?
Yeah, he'd already been. First of all, she was, the way it goes is that she was treating him, but he was manipulating her. and so she was falling in love with him at the same time. So there was a lot of, it's basically their connection is essentially like the most toxic relationship ever is what they're going for. These two people are really bad, but even worse together.
Right.
And they sort of kind of need each other, but they're also, they don't have a healthy relationship. They're sort of trapped together in a way, infatuated, obsessed. And I think this movie really kind of nailed that dynamic where, he's like coming after her wherever she is, and she's like so smitten that she's having fantasies of both of them being totally fine and having a family and a home. I thought that was kind of an interesting peek into her psyche. Even though she knows that's not possible because they're all bad and fucked up and kind of irredeemable at this point. I thought that was an interesting dynamic to the character. So I would say for the most part, I think Harley Quinn really worked for me, and I thought she was probably had most of the best moments in the movie. I feel like whenever she said anything, the people in the theater were laughing or like totally behind it.
Yeah, so if she's really that crazy in the comic books, then I guess it makes sense that she's that crazy in the movies, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because sometimes she got on my nerves a little bit.
What, like, for examples?
I don't know. I guess this guy, how crazy she was, she's just, like, always like, yeah, let's go kill people. And,
like whatever?
That whole lackadaisical attitude that she had towards
or, like, down for whatever.
mayhem.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. But that's the perfect woman for the Joker. He's already into chaos. So it makes sense that he would want to be with someone like that, But
she wasn't like that, though, as a
like
counselor.
Well, no, it was... I'd like to think that it was simultaneously him manipulating her and also her just sort of falling for him for whatever reason. Maybe because she was a psychiatrist and she became fascinated by him, and then that gave him an opportunity to sort of twist her mind, too. I don't know. But, I'm looking forward to... In the way the movie ends, of course, they set it up for the two of them running around the streets of Gotham starting shit so they can pop up in Ben Affleck's solo Batman movie whenever that happens, which I don't think we have a release date announced yet, but it has been confirmed that he's directing it as well, so that should be really cool. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that should be really cool. So I'm looking forward to that. And I guess, what about, let's do the next pair. Let's do Captain Boomerang and Amanda Waller. So...
that's the next pair?
Let's do that. Let's do that pair next.
Amanda Waller's not a Suicide Squad.
She's not, but she's a major part of the movie. I feel like we should save the Joker for last.
Okay.
And then some of the more inconsequential people will just sort of group together and such. And one of them in particular I'm going to save for when I start talking about the issues that I have with the movie.
Okay. So my opinion of Captain Boomerang, I kind of said it earlier, but I felt like he didn't really contribute very much to the Suicide Squad overall. He was just sort of there, time just drinking and talking shit.
Yeah, he was just sort of there as comic relief. I think that was pretty much the only reason he was there. But I will say this for there's not a whole lot more to talk about with his character. He's
not
just
really.
kind of. But I will say this: I did think he was amusing, and I think it's the first movie I've seen Jai Courtney in where he wasn't like really bland and totally white bread and forgettable. So in that respect, congratulations, Suicide Squad! You finally made Jai Courtney interesting.
Well, I liked what he said to Harley Quinn in the bar. That was one of the best lines.
That scene at the bar was actually one of the best scenes in the movie. I thought.
But yeah, absolutely, she's beautiful, but doesn't. She's ugly inside. So that he penned it perfectly.
Okay, well, we're gonna do Amanda Waller, but now when you said that, it made me think of Killer Croc, one of his best moments.
Oh.
Where she's like, Harley Quinn's like, oh, except for him, he's ugly outside too, and he's like, oh no, honey, I'm beautiful, and he takes his hood off. I thought, I can't. It's hard for me to remember how to pronounce the gentleman's name. Adewale. I forget how to do his last couple, and I don't want to butcher it, so I'm just going to let it be. But I thought he was great as Killer Croc, and I'm really glad that he survived this movie, so we can see more of him, because he's a Batman villain as well, so, he can pop up wherever in any Batman movies or wherever down the line. And it's cool that this movie established all these villains that are now just existing in the world. So, Killer Croc I thought was fun, and he didn't have much to say, but when he did say something, it was memorable and added something special to the movie.
Yeah, and that line about the sewer too.
Yeah, that was great. And the way when he started swimming in the water, people were like getting a kick out of that behind us. And I do think that David Ayer, the director and writer, actually too, I do think he made the right choice in going with Killer Croc over King Shark. I think King Shark would have stuck out like a sore thumb among this group. And Killer Croc was supernatural enough that he kind of would cause the audience to taken aback, but also grounded enough that he didn't look ridiculous standing next to the rest of the cast.
I'm just curious on how he got that way. I wonder if they're ever going to tell that story.
Skin condition that sort of like really worsened, I think, is what happens.
Wow,
it's different. There's different versions of him. I told you, in one of them, he straight up looks like a crocodile, like the lizard in Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like that. So I guess we just covered Killer Croc, but I thought he was great.
Okay, there you go.
So Amanda Waller. Viola
Davis played it very one note to me, but I know that she was doing that, that was part of her performance. Right. But yeah, she was like intimidating.
Yeah, that's Viola Davis. Amanda Waller in the comics, from my understanding, is essentially one of the only characters that doesn't give a fuck about Batman. Like, she knows his identity. They go toe to toe, and they're constantly in this battle of wits back and forth. And I think the post or mid credit scene, like I said, spoilers. I think the mid credit scene really captured that dynamic in a matter of a minute or two, and also explained where Bruce Wayne got some of the information on Arthur Curry and Barry Allen to lead him to them in Justice League.
Oh, okay.
I mean, all we knew is that all he knew in BB. Yeah. I think we're just going literally minus, except for Wonder Woman. Obviously, they're kind of doing the Captain America First Avenger approach, where these are all in order except for this one, which is way back in the past. That seems to be what they're doing. Because all Bruce Wayne knew from BVS was that these guys were out there, not how to get a hold of them, where they were, their identities, and all this stuff. So he was able to sort of get that information.
And of course, Amanda Waller knows everything.
Yeah, well, that's her. Yeah, exactly.
Like she said, she's like, I'm everywhere. I see everything.
She was great. More of her, and I'm glad that they didn't. They kept her around, because now you have all these great actors and interesting characters, and they've been introduced to the DC Extended Universe, which I believe is what they're calling this. How there's the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I believe they're going with DC Extended Universe.
That's
is what I've been
more boring, but okay.
Yeah, it's a little longer too. But I think they just didn't want to call it DC Cinematic Universe. Be like, hey, we're like Marvel.
Right.
Same name and everything, guys.
Because they've already each of them have stolen enough stuff from the comic book.
Right. And the funny thing is that they basically trade off, like, oh, this character Marvel copied from DC, this character DC copied from Marvel. So the never-ending competition between the two of them continues. Okay, so delving into, let's just group together the rest of the people minus the Joker and one specific person that I'm going to get to that I thought was probably the weakest element of the movie. So I thought Katana was interesting. I like the whole part with the souls in her sword, and the fact that she's not really a villain. She's sort of a mercenary, I guess. Just kind of works with whoever.
She's a female Deadpool?
A little bit. I don't know. Not as jokey, for sure.
Yeah, I know.
But I like the fact that they brought her into this world, and I'm curious how they're going to use her in the future.
Yeah, she's badass.
Did you want to pick the next one that we touch on? There's still a couple more. You sound like you like Diablo, so...
Let's talk about... Yeah, I was just going to say that. Let's talk about Diablo. So So Jay Hernandez, I have not seen in anything in a long time. The first thing I saw him in was Crazy Beautiful.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, 15 years ago. So it's good to see him in like a meaty role like this. And I liked Diablo a lot. I thought he was a really complex character, and I liked his backstory. And it's a really sad story.
Well, as soon as
his powers were like
crazy.
Man, they don't need the other Suicide Squad members. They just need him.
The fact that he's not really that much of a known quantity, across the various DC properties, like he's not... Killer Croc has appeared in a lot of things, Deadshot, Captain Boomerang, and stuff like that. The fact that Diablo is not as well-known a character, I sort of figured he would probably be one to bite the dust, and the fact that they were painting him as a very tragic figure up front, where he's like, no, I'll die before I'll ever, do that kind of thing again. I was like, okay, you're gonna die, then that's what that means.
Surprised he didn't burn himself to a crisp when he turned into the fire.
Yeah.
That was
crazy.
Yeah, that was intense, but yeah, I like Diablo. He was I think he was the most interesting.
Rick Flag for me was just kind of there, and Slipknot died right away, so he didn't really even...
Yeah, they didn't even introduce him.
I thought Joel Kinnaman, and might as well get to this now, Joel Kinnaman, who played Rick Flag, I thought his whole love story with June Moon, who was the Enchantress. I thought that whole love story fell flat for me, and I actually thought the Enchantress was the weakest part of the whole movie.
I 100% agree with you.
I don't know if it's because of Cara Delevingne, if that's how you say her name. I think it is. I don't know if it's because she's not as accomplished of an actress or what, but that character just really fell flat for me. That whole storyline just felt really rushed, and it was the source of all the supernatural part of the movie, really. And I didn't think that the film really established that well enough or really earned the crazy places that it went with that character.
Right. I agree with you. But the thing is, though, to the credit of Cara Delevingne's performance, is I do think that her being a model helped with her mannerisms. Her mannerisms were very model-esque.
Oh, the way she moved and stuff? Yeah, I could say. That was probably it's not, I don't want to be like...
She's very seductive.
I don't want to be ragging.
That way.
I don't want to be ragging. It really bothers you that all the women in this movie are sexualized, doesn't it?
No, I'm just saying...
Because you were saying about Harley earlier.
Well, no, I'm not, but that has nothing to do with what I'm saying about the Enchantress. I'm saying that the fact that she has modeling... her experiences in modeling.
Yeah, it helped. And I don't mean to tear into the actress. It's not the actress's fault. I just didn't find that character very interesting, and the fact that she spoke very monotone. And I guess that she's supposed to be otherworldly.
Because, wasn't that because she also
Amanda Waller even said that she's from another dimension.
Well,
but I don't know.
Though she wasn't really, but wasn't she not really even talking her language until she did? She went until the Amanda Waller of the movie section.
I guess, yeah.
She abducted her, so I thought because that was what was going on with her voice, it was Amanda Waller's voice. That's why it sounded like that.
Amanda Waller's voice? That's not Amanda Waller's voice.
Well, it was kind of like that, though, because she was basically speaking a different language the entire movie until the part where she kidnapped Amanda Waller.
Yeah, but she didn't sound like Amanda Waller's voice. What do you mean?
It didn't. Well, Amanda Waller talked very one note the whole movie, too. She had a very one note.
Yeah, but she's like that. I don't know. Not really. I mean, sort of, but not really. Because she's just like in control all the time, so she's got no reason to raise her voice or anything. That's her whole thing. But and then again, maybe the Enchantress on some level feels like that too, but I don't know.
I figured it was that because how else did she go from not even speaking English to then all of a sudden she's...
Yeah, but I don't think there's anything in the movie to support that.
Well, maybe that's the other problem then, is that it doesn't support the fact that she's now speaking English when she was...
No, she's speaking English because these other people don't understand her language. That's why.
How does she know it, though? How does she know English, then?
I don't know. She's got June Moon. She's 6,300
years old.
She's in another person's body. I don't know.
But she's not June Moon anymore.
I like how she, like, creates a monster, and then they create this army of, like, blob people, basically so that the Suicide Squad has something to kill that doesn't leave blood and body parts everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and they were stupid. What a stupid army.
Yeah, but I like how all that crazy shit's happening, but you're like, and how'd she know English?
Because we were talking about it. Well, no, the stupid blob people, like... They could be killed with the bat in half? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, That was really
what a dumb enemy.
And it's funny how everybody's like, DC, Marvel. It's like, because I felt like this movie had a lot of the same issues that I had with Guardians of the Galaxy. And in that the villain was really lame. The plan was really lame. The reason for the not even heroes in this case, not even heroes in that case either. That's a group of criminals and like misfits and miscreants who somehow become a family. And by the way, the fact that Diablo's like, I already lost one family, I'm not gonna lose another one. I was like, okay, really?
You've been hanging out with like a
You guys are family? There's a fucking crazy people. There's a crocodile man, and this like, I don't know. That didn't work for me. It was like Dominic Toretto all of a sudden.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking that
too. And this movie so obviously wants to be Guardians in that its soundtrack. I mean, we blow through I think like 3 to 5 major pop songs in the first 10-15 minutes of the movie or less. And like I said, the whole idea of a group of disconnected criminals coming together for a really shitty reason that's kind of just an excuse to bring them together. Yeah,
and what was it? Okay, and the other thing is, it seemed like they spent a lot of time at the government building where Amanda Waller was.
Right.
But they actually really, what they should have done is gone to Mid-City, the subway station first, instead of spending all that time killing the...
Well, I think it happens out of sequence, because we see in a flashback that Rick Flag was there to try and take care of the situation, and then it didn't work out, and then that's when she created her whole. And it's funny because all the Marvel movies are always this, and I hate to keep comparing them back and forth, but the fact is that DC is trying to establish a shared universe like Marvel has already done, and that brand loyalty.
And that money too. They like that.
Well, yeah, the money too. But I mean, there's a brand loyalty where they do a Ant-Man movie and people like shrug and like, all right, let's buy our tickets. It comes out next week. It's the next Marvel movie, and people haven't. I don't know if general audiences. I mean, the geek community and people like me who follow movies and stuff will be there regardless. But I don't think general audiences are just like, oh, Suicide Squad. What is that? Like, they're not. They don't just go because it's a DC movie. I don't feel like yet. Maybe they're getting to that point. But the fact that the Marvel movies are always accused...
Batman movie, people go see it.
Batman, but people love Batman. That's a different thing. But the fact that the Marvel movies are always accused of just, one-dimensional villains, a big blue beam in the sky, Avengers, Fantastic Four, every Marvel movie and most superhero movies in general, including Man of Steel, with the terraforming process, all this CG monsters and crazy shit in the third act, which was honestly some of the held my interest the least in this movie, was all the Enchantress, and by extension the thing with her brother, who I don't even know why I care about this guy, but you're telling me,
and they didn't even explain it.
He's basically her minion for the movie. I don't really care. I don't know why they.
Yeah, they never even established where he came from.
A lot of the
why she chose that man to be her brother?
Just random guy, I think. I would have preferred had the plan involved the Joker, or had there been a reveal towards the end where Lex Luthor was working with Amanda Waller or something, and then trying to orchestrate something from prison, something like that tied into the developing story rather than this bullshit thing with the Enchantress.
Yeah, the Joker story. If they should just focus on one or the other and built it out more, because the Joker being thrown in there, it kind of felt a little discombobulated.
Well, just like BVS, which was discombobulated because they have the Batman Superman conflict, and then Wonder Woman, and then Justice League, and then Doomsday for some reason. It's like you didn't need all of that.
That's what happened with Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Right.
Just too much.
Man of Steel, and I know you have issues with Man of Steel, but at least that is a singular story. It's like, this guy was sent to Earth, he became this guy, and now he's going to turn into a hero because circumstances sort of force him to step up.
Okay.
And that's the only DC movie thus far that feels like a distinct vision. Suicide Squad probably gets closer than Batman vs. Superman because they had so much craziness going on in there, and Zack Snyder likes to cram so much in there, and I probably at this point I probably have already talked about Batman vs Superman on this podcast because I'm going to record a segment and put it before this.
Listen in, everybody.
Well, they're going to hear this before. They will have already heard that.
Oh,
I'm going to put this at the end. Behind the scenes magic on the Cricket Table podcast. But I don't know. That part of it didn't work for me. But as an excuse for establishing all these characters and bringing together this team and taking a risk like this movie does in centering a film on a comic book title that most people really aren't. You think people don't know about Wonder Woman? That people barely know about Suicide Squad. In fact, if you hadn't even heard of it until this movie happened.
No, I had no idea.
Yeah. The movie deserves, admiration for that side of it. As well as, I know we were talking about this a little before recording, as well as for the diversity in the film. The fact that you have black actors, you have Asian actors, you have, men, women, you have Latino, like this Diablo in there. I thought all of that worked into the movie's credit.
Right. I think that was good. That was a good way to mix up diversity. But Guardians of the Galaxy, if we're talking about it, they have a lot of diversity too. I mean, they have raccoon. They have a raccoon.
A tree.
A tree. Exactly. They don't discriminate against anybody.
I didn't tell you, but it was revealed at Comic-Con that this is a little bit of a tangent because that's how I roll. At Comic-Con, they did show Guardians 2 footage, and apparently this movie has like a little bit like a baby or a toddler Groot. So he's still small like he was at the end of the first movie. And apparently there's a callback to the first movie where in that scene where they're like the camera's rotating around Groot with Rocket on his shoulder, but only it's Rocket with the tiny Groot on his shoulder instead this time. And I thought that sounds like a really cute image, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. And they'll
definitely be selling those two together in stores.
Of course. They're not dumb. Marvel knows what's up.
So everybody
Disney
has
knows
the
what's
Guardians
up.
of the Galaxy merchandise from the first movie.
But now you need this one.
Exactly.
It's just every movie they'll have Groot at a different age. But like you got to collect them all: baby Groot, teenage Groot, middle-aged Groot, senior citizen Groot.
Right. But anyway, back to Suicide Squad.
So I feel like it has a lot of the same issues as Guardians for me, but a lot of the same strengths as well. The cast really works. The chemistry between the cast really works. The characters, I want to see more of them. I want to see these characters interact with other characters from the other films. I want to see Batman interact with this Joker, which we didn't get in this movie. I want to see Batman face off. Basically, I want to see Batman interact with the people in this movie because they're mostly Batman villains for the most part. But I want to see the Justice League come up against some of these characters in future movies. But this particular movie, I think I have to go with you with like a 3.5. Which is the same score that I gave to Guardians of the Galaxy. So to me, it's around the same level. It's more cohesive and makes more sense than the theatrical cut of BVS by far. But it's not exactly like the home run that some people were probably hoping for. That the home run that some people feel Deadpool was. I actually think Deadpool is a better movie. And it does feel like Suicide Squad is sort of like, let's take like this, like the style of Guardians, but like a little bit of the edginess from Deadpool and sort of try and Suicide Squad was the right property for that approach because anti-heroes are so huge right now.
Right. Yeah, I know. An interesting way of looking at it. But Deadpool also, I think that Ryan Reynolds having so much creative control over that film in the first place may have helped because he loved that character so much. And
right.
I mean, did any of these actors in Suicide Squad really have any care about these characters?
No, but and the thing is too, this is an ensemble piece, so it's not really fair to compare it to Deadpool. Even though I was saying like in approach, it sort of feels like a product of what's popular right now in comic book movies.
Mayhem, chaos.
Well, sort of, yeah, exactly.
There's no F-bombs in Suicide Squad, though.
No. Although I would have been curious to see an R-rated cut, but I don't think one really exists. It seems like they were pretty much trying to shoot for a PG-13, and most of the imagery that seemed like it was going to be really scary in the marketing wasn't really. So before we start to wind things down, first of all, well, are you looking forward to seeing more of these characters in other movies, or are you like, I don't care, you guys stupid?
Well, were we going to talk about the?
I'm going to get there.
Okay,
I'm going to get there in a second. That's going to be the last thing I'm going to close out on.
Okay.
Are you looking forward to seeing any more of these people in future movies, or are you sort of like, I'm good now, no more Harley Quinn, please, no more Captain Boomerang, no more Deadshot, or you like that now we know who these characters are and they can show up like Marvel has been able to do, that these characters exist and they can weave in and out of other stories. What
would be really cool to see is Justice League and Suicide Squad teaming up, and I don't know if that's the angle that they're going to go to, because I don't know if it's known if it's Suicide Squad is going to have a sequel, but I would be curious.
Rumored.
To see.
I don't know if it's been officially announced yet.
Nobody knows what the reviews are yet either.
Well, but if it does 140 million like it's projected to,
right, then they're gonna be like, oh, sequel. But
Monday morning.
It's all with DC. It's all about figuring out the next part, how things are gonna go, because it isn't Marvel. They're not guaranteed. $300 million.
And it shouldn't. And I don't want it to be Marvel. Like the reason, and it's people listening to the podcast probably think that we're very DC biased because we had a whole episode on Batman v Superman, and now we're doing an episode on Suicide Squad, and they're like, well, where was your Captain America Civil War episode? And, scheduling and, the inconsistency of, on my end of posting episodes kind of led to that being old news by the time we recorded one. But Marvel has sort of slipped into a formula where, they're good, but rarely are they great. Like right, rarely are they, you come out and you're like, holy shit, that was an amazing movie. I feel like Civil War was one, but other than the Captain America movies, there's been like maybe the first Avengers movie, not the first Avenger, Captain America, the first Avengers movie, and like a couple of the others. But of the 13, I'd say maybe a third of them were what I would consider excellent, and the rest were either decent. And that would probably be Iron Man 2, which is not a terrible movie, but not great, to very good, but, not exceptional. And I don't want DC to slip into a rut like it feels like even though these movies are imperfect, Batman v Superman and this one and Man of Steel, I do feel like they're doing something different and they're taking artistic chances. And they're, you know, to make a movie of Suicide Squad this early in their cinematic universe, or extended universe, I guess, is kind of a ballsy move. So I give them props for going there.
Yeah. No, I agree. And they're not even gonna be doing very many origin stories before they just jump into the Justice League.
Right. Do you like that better? Do you like the approach of these people exist, figure out who they are, let's go forward?
Yes, because I mean it's like we've had enough origin stories already.
Right.
And it's good that DC is just like, yeah, Batman's been fighting crime.
Well, you don't need a Batman one, but, you know, the fact that they already introduced the Flash, they already introduced... who we should say the Flash had a brief cameo in this. Apparently, I guess he was the one that stopped... It looked like it was Diablo, if I'm remembering right.
Oh, maybe.
I think he stopped Diablo.
Well, that was boring, though, because Diablo already surrendered, technically, didn't he?
Well, but he already had the suit, so he's already running around doing his thing.
Right, exactly. So everybody's already doing stuff.
So
villain's already bad.
Basically, we learn who these people are fully formed, and whether or not the Flash and Aquaman movie will be prequels and tell their origin stories, or just continue on as, you know, their own adventure. That remains to be seen. I mean, I think with Wonder Woman, it makes sense that because you don't really need, I mean, you could make a whole Flash movie where Barry Allen got struck by lightning and he gets these powers, but you already have the show if you want to know. If you want to know an origin story for the Flash, you have a show. Just watch the pilot of that CW show and then keep watching because it's awesome. But with Wonder Woman, her origin is more complex. She's got a whole mythology and a whole universe behind her. Plus, that character deserves to have a big screen origin she never has before.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm excited that they're doing with that.
And she was the best part of BVS.
Well, I also like Ben Affleck's Batman, but yeah, she brought a freshness to it because we hadn't seen Wonder Woman on screen before. So you like that they're just being like, here's Harley Quinn, she's Harley Quinn, here's a couple flashbacks if you really want it, but we're not going to give like a Harley Quinn movie before we do this.
Yeah,
stuff.
and it was perfect the way that they did explain the origin stories, where it was really quick and you got the gist of what they were going for.
Oh, the other reason you mentioned this, I think we mentioned this earlier already, but I did notice that they had she put the lineup of the Suicide Squad, and it was, Deadshot, Harley Quinn, Killer Croc, Captain Boomerang, I forget now, and Diablo, and then Slipknot. And I was like, we didn't get any flashbacks for Slipknot. That probably doesn't bode well for Slipknot. Yeah. And then Slipknot's like, his head blows up in 5 seconds. I'm like, oh, okay, I kind of figured. That's the other like, I guess pun intended, because Rick Flag's in the movie. That's the other red flag for me. That he wasn't going to stick around. So tying into our whole comment about, characters being fully formed, before we close out, I feel like one of the most talked about parts of this movie has been Jared Leto as the Joker. And, there was that image that was released with him, shirtless with all the tattoos, and people were like, what the fuck are they doing to the Joker? This doesn't look like any Joker I've seen before. And then all the marketing material, making him look really scary with all the grills, basically. And I guess the idea there is that he's been in so many fights that his teeth have all been punched out at some point or another, so he's just been capped, all of them.
Or maybe he just wants to cap them.
Maybe.
That's what a lot of people do with grills.
Maybe. But I like the idea that he's been in so many, Batman's beaten the shit out of him so many times that he's just lost all his teeth. I think that's a kind of a more badass idea. They don't establish whether or not that's the case in this movie, but every image that was coming out, people were like losing their shit over this interpretation of the Joker. And I know that you had issues with Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor in BVS. I actually liked him in there. I thought he was one of the few elements of that film that actually brought some life to it, even though it was a little over the top and ridiculous, but he's supposed to be insane. So I can accept a lot more of that kind of behavior from a character like that. So the big question, what was your thoughts on the Joker? Did it work for you or not? What did or didn't, I guess, and all that?
Well, I tried to go in to Suicide Squad with an open mind regarding Joker, because I didn't want to, because I already was not liking what I saw in the trailers, which is a similar thing that happened with Lex Luthor. And I go in there, try to have an open mind, and I appreciate what the writers are trying to do and what Jared Leto was trying to do. They were trying to bring a different performance than what we've seen before of the Jokers in the past. But I just didn't like it. It didn't work for me. I thought it was I thought the Jared Leto's portrayal of Joker was just weird and ostentatious, and he was like a punk ganger guy.
He even made people
obnoxious.
He made people kiss his ring and everything.
Yeah, it was just
although that moment where Ike Barinholtz's character kisses his ring and then he kind of pulls back, he's like, I could tell you really meant that. I thought that was a great moment.
What happened to him? Did he die?
I don't know if that was established. I was wondering about that too.
And that's so
actually.
random. He's a security guard, a warden, and all of a sudden he's
the Joker kind of recruits him, I think.
Yeah, and he's like, owes people
yeah.
debt. He's like to loan sharks or something. That was so random and out of place, and they could have explained that better.
Or not had it in there at all.
Right, exactly. Because it didn't seem like they really needed him for anything. Yeah,
what did they need him for? What was his function? Why did the Joker even work with him? That didn't make any sense.
Yeah,
to get access.
I don't
to know, to be updated on what Amanda Waller was up to, maybe.
I guess.
That he could go and find and get Harley.
But then they have those guns things that are supposed to put bolts in you, but they used it once and then they didn't use it again.
Yeah,
so
I mean, all those characters, they want to be around for future movies and stuff.
Yeah, that was just the continuity of that storyline didn't make sense. But no, I didn't like it. So
just to put into to contextualize a little bit, what are your thoughts on previous versions? Did you like Heath Ledger's? Because if you don't, the internet will kill you. Did you like Jack Nicholson? Like, how did you feel about, like, are you okay with multiple versions of the Joker, or are you just like, I Heath Ledger's my Joker, that's it, fuck you?
I think the different incarnations of Joker is fine, especially since, from my understanding of the comic books, there are different incarnations of Joker, just like there's different incarnations of Batman.
I just read a whole book about Batman and how he's changed over the decades, from being like, Adam West to where did our drugs going and stuff. So
I mean, Jack Nicholson's Joker will always be my favorite because that's the Joker that I grew up with. But yes, Heath Ledger did a great job too. I don't know. I mean, clearly this Joker, Jared Leto's Joker, was insane and chaotic. And
is it maybe because we don't know how he got this way? Like, if we understood a little bit more I mean, we know how he got this way and fell in chemicals and stuff, but we don't have any glimpse of who he is before this. He just shows up and he's the way he is. And then is that maybe like if a future Batman movie delves more into his relationship with Batman, would that help you maybe accept it more? Or are you just like,
maybe.
Is it the fact that he's like a Mac Daddy, like King of Gotham style type deal? Is that what bugs you?
Yeah, it's just weird. And I feel like Jared Leto was playing it up because he has a lot to take on with this Joker. Like, he has to basically be a different Joker than Heath Ledger, who won the posthumous Oscar. So that's a lot to live up to. I mean, Jared Leto has one too, but
not for this character.
But yeah, I think he was just. I also just kind of think he was hamming it up for that reason too, and it just.
But if you're gonna ham it up,
Joker and his performance just did not work for me.
If you're gonna ham it up, Joker is the role to ham it up in, right. Even more so than Lex Luthor, and that's why some people had issues with Eisenberg's take on Lex Luthor, because he was playing it almost like he was the Riddler or the Joker, where he was just like really like kind of antsy and like with the all the facial tics and weird speech pattern and such. I sort of agree with some of your Joker criticisms. It didn't bug me as much as it bugged you, but I wasn't 100% sold. Like, I like, in the context of his relationship with Harley, I thought he was more interesting. But that scene where he was trying to like hook up Common, who played some random gangster, I guess.
Oh yeah.
With Harley, and then got pissed and then killed him. I don't know what the hell that was about.
Yeah, that was very odd.
I mean, I guess it's just he's. I think it's maybe because he could tell that guy was into his lady, and so he just wanted like a reason where he felt justified in killing him.
Or maybe he just didn't like him at all in general. And
maybe.
He's like, oh well.
But it seemed like the movie goes toward the theme of the whole.
But she was dancing up on some other guy.
Yeah, I know.
In the cage. So why didn't you want to kill him?
Well, he's the Joker. He's unpredictable and not really rational. But the theme of the whole movie was, from what I can tell, people searching for redemption, searching for love, that kind of thing. Diablo wanted to be redeemed. for what he did to his family. Deadpool. Oh my God, Deadshot. Sorry everyone. Deadshot wanted to be redeemed in the eyes of his daughter and that was a great scene where Batman faces off with Deadshot.
Yeah.
And his daughter sort of gets in the middle. And Harley wanted to basically, sort of win back the Joker, like, get back with him. And everybody's searching for a sense of belonging. And I thought that was an interesting theme to sort of, to connect them all in similar fashion as Guardians had, that same kind of theme going on where everybody lost something, everybody's looking for something, and it sort of finds it in each other in a weird way. But I mean, I'm sort of still on the fence with Jared Leto's Joker. Certain elements of it I thought were interesting and quirky, but I don't know, it just didn't gel properly. Maybe that's because, in my mind, the character is so inextricably linked to Batman, and we didn't see them interact at all in this movie because I guess they're holding that back.
You think so?
I mean, we're going to see that at some point. Otherwise, what's the point of having them in these movies? So, I mean, until I see him, I need to see him play off of Batman and the chemistry that Jared Leto and Ben Affleck have on screen. I think that will be the real deciding factor for me. So I have a feeling that's going to be that Jared Leto's performance is going to be a bone of contention for people. I mean, he was great in it. It's just how do I feel about the way that this character is being portrayed?
Right. Is
what it is. For what he has to do, Jared Leto is great because Jared Leto is a great actor in general. So, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. It's been unclear if Joker and or Lex Luthor, or any of the other established villains are going to appear in the Justice League movie, or if that's just really going to be more about Steppenwolf, who's Darkseid's lieutenant, essentially. If that's going to focus more on that, I feel like they're going to need to have some minor antagonists throughout to sort of build up to that. But we'll see what happens in the months ahead. It's like a year and a half until Justice League.
Oh my God!
It comes out November next year. So Wonder Woman, I think, is June-ish.
June 2nd, I thought.
Yeah, something like that. So, we're still aboard the DC Extended Universe. We're looking forward to see what happens next.
We're trying to wait until Superman comes back.
Yeah, and I thought that was good that I guess we should comment on that on the podcast real fast. I thought that was good that in the Justice League trailer from Comic-Con, it's not a 100% official trailer. It's really more of a sort of just a Comic-Con presentation is what Warner Brothers is calling it. They didn't reveal anything about Superman. I mean, we know he's in the movie, but they didn't show how he comes back or any of that. And I thought that was smart. You have so long to go. Don't give us all that. We don't need to know that at this point.
And we may not know until the movie.
I think that would be awesome if they don't really put like all the trailers. They never show any footage of Henry Cavill in the movie. I think that would be great.
That was a mistake with BVS.
Or that would mean and I think they learned that mistake, which is why I was telling you before the movie tonight started that Suicide Squad. It was about to start, and I was telling you I still feel like we don't really know what this movie is about because we didn't know Enchantress was the villain until we went in.
Right. And the thing is some of the dialogue they put in the trailers, you didn't really know what was going on. Yeah. Like you didn't know who Jared Leto was talking to when he said, "I'm going to hurt you real, real bad." And,
I had seen photos and stuff, and I sort of figured it was that scene. But I mean,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it depends how deep you want to dive into it.
Okay,
yeah.
And then also the scene where Harley Quinn says, "Uh-oh," they did that synced right up with the Joker. So you think the Joker's just showed up. Right. And that she's scared of the Joker.
One of the funny ones for me was, at the end where she's like making her demands of what she wants. And she's like, I want an espresso machine. And then you see her at the end back in her cell with a little cup of espresso and then like making herself a new one before Joker comes in and rescues her. And of course, we knew he didn't die in the plane crash.
That was a helicopter crash. We also don't ever see the fact that he died.
Yeah, of course. I mean, they're not going to kill the Joker. The fact that the movie, I don't know if the movie even wanted us to believe. It was just important that Harley thought he was dead. But the espresso reveal is just a random shot of her in her cell, and I assumed it was from early on in the movie before she gets out. But the fact that it plays in at the end, I love when trailers if they show when they show stuff, they show it out of context, so you basically have no idea what you're looking at. And that trailer was so stylishly done with the music, with Ballroom Blitz, with Bohemian Rhapsody, with I Started a Joke.
Which I wish they had some Ballroom Blitz in there.
Yeah,
what
in
was
the
up
movie.
with that?
Yeah, I didn't.
They played everything else. Anyway,
I know.
Go on.
I know. So it does seem like DC is learning from their mistakes as far as, I feel like with Suicide Squad, they learned from BBS not to give too much away. I feel like, going forward, they seem to be adding more levity into the movies and not being like, this is serious business. We're superheroes and look what's happening to our world. I'm like, okay, well, yes, but then you're just like, I don't know. When you break it down, all these comic book movies are really ridiculous. Like if you focus in on what's happening, you're like, there's a guy who dresses like a bat, and there's a guy who thinks he's a clown, and there's a guy who shoots webbing out of his arm. I mean, granted, he makes his own web shooters, but whatever. Still, there's a man with powers of a spider. There's a dude who's frozen in ice and then comes back wearing a flag on his torso. It's all really silly. So I feel like.
And also, DC movies in general are also very dark.
Well,
more dark than Marvel.
The last couple, yeah.
So for
this one wasn't
levity,
as much. This one had levity.
The Batman, the Christopher Nolan were dark too. But that was actually the first dark.
I think
Batman.
what happened was that
to add levity is good because DC needs that because the film's already so dark in nature.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Marvel already is more bright and happy.
They need to strike a more balanced tone with the DC movies and not feel like I think that they are. That approach has been reactionary from the Dark Knight trilogy, and since that did so well, I think they were just thinking, we have to make all our movies like that because look how much people like it.
But wasn't DC Comics traditionally more dark in general?
I guess it comes and goes. It depends. It depends which ones you're talking about. There's been so many versions of these characters. But it does feel like Suicide Squad was the first time that they actually had some jokes, and they didn't, other than, is she with you? I thought she was with you, and things like that, which didn't even, because then when you try and add a comedic moment like that in a movie that's so dark, it just falls flat. It just feels sort of jarring half the time, more than having the intended effect of making you smile or laugh or whatever. And I think that Warner Brothers and DC felt early on that they had to be really dark and really serious so that audiences would take their movies seriously, I guess. You know what I mean? So that audiences would be like, oh my God, this is a great movie. Look at how serious it is. But that's not what people respond to. Civil War has, and I hate to keep comparing them, but it's kind of hard not to. Civil War has a lot of serious moments, but it's also one of the most fun movies of the year and probably the best blockbuster spectacle so far. And we're in August now. But that's because they balance everything out and they hit the emotional beats that they need to hit. It's not always somber and kind of depressing. It comes from the characters, which is why someone like The Flash coming in Justice League is not going to bring that same darkness that Batman would because, it should flow naturally from the essence of that character. So, in closing, any final thoughts on Suicide Squad?
No, just go ahead and see it, everybody, and see what it's all about and see if you like it or if you hate it.
But the DC movies seem to be moving in the right direction, and that's something we're excited about.
Yes. And Marvel and DC can have a nice... I always like it when Disney has competition. Because
I like when anybody has competition.
Yeah,
competition makes both people, makes both entities, companies and studios in this case, I guess, pushes them to be better.
Exactly.
Competition's good. So now if DC starts making better and better and better movies, Marvel will have to be like, fuck, we need to shake things up and raise our game.
Exactly. It only makes the films better. So I like that Disney's got a little bit of competition.
Yes,
with Warner Brothers.
We like Marvel. We like DC. We just want good movies from everybody. So we're rooting for both.
Right, but we just tend to see more Marvel.
No, I see all of them. What do you mean? Marvel has more movies out. That's why. Marvel has now 3 movies coming out a year. DC is this is the first year that they've had 2 movies in a year before, I think.
Okay. You're right.
At least in the same, continuity. But yeah, very excited about Doctor Strange, very excited about Wonder Woman, Justice League, Thor, all the stuff coming up in the next year. So stay tuned to the Crooked Table Podcast for all that. You can find all of our podcasts, videos, reviews, and other movie-related goodies on crookedtable.com. Find us on Facebook. Also follow me on Twitter at Crooked Table.
And also, you can find both of us on Letterboxd.
Oh, yeah, Letterboxd.
And I'm on Twitter as
letterboxd.com.
well at the Volkey LLC, as well as that's my Letterboxd handle too.
You said as well a couple times then.
I did. I guess it's
As
my
well.
favorite phrase of the day.
It is.
As well.
I feel like Pee-wee's Playhouse. Today's favorite word is...
As well.
Yeah. So for the Crooked Table Podcast, this is Rob.
And this is Kai.
And we'll catch you guys next time. Roll credits.
This has been a production of crookedtable.com. All rights reserved.
CROOKED.